Alright guys, so we're checking out a couple new products here from ViFLY. So they have been kind of busy and they're making some interesting new drone products here. Not super unusual, but different from most other drone companies out there. So we got the Strobe, we'll look at that first, and then we got the GPS Mate, and we'll look at that second. And the Strobe is pretty interesting. This is what you get with it. You get the Strobe itself, USB cable here for charging the battery, and this is a micro USB, little short cable here, and you get some Velcro for sticking it onto your drone. So one goes on strobe, and then the other one goes on your drone. So obviously the strobe is for night flying. For those of you that perhaps want to do that. This is extremely bright. Here's a quick look at the manual. So there's green, red, and white LEDs on here, and they're, I forget what the power is, 5 by 3 watts. I'm not exactly sure what that means, 5 by 3, because there's only 3 lights. So take a look at that here in a second. And you can also go to these different modes, or basically through the different colors and lighting patterns. And I'll just go ahead and show you. This is extremely bright, by the way, so just prepare yourself. This is going to probably blind you here. So long press to turn it on. And you can see the flashing. Camera is probably compensating because when it's actually way brighter in real life than I can see through the LCD screen on the camera. So this is the default white color, and it's strobes. If you short press, it goes to the next mode. Flashing, solid color, and then you get the next one. This is the red strobe, red flashing, red solid. You have a green strobe, green flashing, green solid, and then they go back to white, and then long press to turn it off. And I believe, let's see, what does it say here? It is 1.5 hours to charge and 4 hours of working time. Now it says you can see this up to 3 miles. I did do a little test in the neighborhood, just put it on the ground, and yeah, it's very bright. You can see it pretty far away. I'm not sure about 3 miles. I don't know. No way for me to test it because I don't fly at night, so it is pretty bright. So this is what it looks like. It comes with a 1S battery, heat shrink all around here. It's not weatherproof, so it could short out if water got in here. Your button, your LEDs, and your micro USB for charging. All right, so set that aside. We'll look at the GPS Mate, which is this interesting device here. So ViFLY, they make these like lost model alarms, but now they have this like GPS helper and buzzer combo. So it's got this battery on here for basically powering your GPS, so that it basically locks onto your satellites, so the rest of your quad is not turned on. So for example, if you have like a DJI quad with a Vista or an Air unit, you don't want your quad sitting there plugged in waiting for satellite lock, and it's going to get pretty hot. So this is what this is going to be good for. I put that in here. Basically, this will power up the GPS. You'll get a lock, and then you can power up your drone, and it'll maintain that lock basically through the power cycle. And it basically saves your video transmitters from overheating. So it's a little, well, it's not exactly straightforward as to how this works, but it's a pass-through method. So here's how the GPS Mate is wired up. So this is their diagram here in the middle. You have your flight controller with 5 wires that goes to a plug. So normally it's 4 wires that goes to a GPS, but this one has 5 because one of them goes to a buzzer. Because this has a built-in buzzer on here that I guess it gives you some signals as to one is got a lock or whatever, and then we have the wires go out from the GPS Mate to your GPS, and those are just the 4 wires here. Of course, you have your power, ground, and RX and TX. Now, they give you 2 wires here. So this one here is the 5 wire, and this plugs in over here. And then this other end is just bare wire, and you have to solder that to your flight controller. And basically, it's power, ground, TX, RX, and the buzzer. And then the other end here is the plug that goes to the GPS. And that's the 4 wire here. This corresponds to these 4 wires over here. And this other end here is not bare wire, but it has the connectors already crimped on here in the end. And then they give you a 4-pin connector here. It's a 1mm connector that these fit into. So the reason they give it to you like this is because not every GPS is going to be, the wire order might be a little different. So you have to keep in mind as to look up the documentation for your GPS, because it's going to vary how it's going to be wired up. But they generally are going to have 4 wires. Basically, you have power, ground, TX, and RX, and you have to wire it up so it matches up to your model. So you have to look up your documentation, because there's about, I don't know, 150 models out there in that right now, so you're gonna have to look that up yourself. But I think this one here, this little project I'm working on here, I'm going to actually use this on the 7-inch conversion project that I'm working on. This is a you'll see this soon in a future video, not sure exactly when. This is the parts from the Tyro 129. I haven't been flying it very much, and some people were asking me for a conversion project into a nicer frame. And this is like a $50 like clone frame or something from Banggood. Anyway, this is going to be perfect for this sort of a GPS quad, because I can, not have the Vista powered. I'm going to convert this to DJI, by the way, and get a satellite lock. But you can see this is the plug that came with the drone, and you just have to pay attention to the wire order on the plug. So here's the plug. It's the same plug that this comes with. You can see here, and you can see the black and the red are on the outside, and the TX and the RX are on the inside. So you have to match up the same way to whatever model you have. So I'm assuming you have a GPS already and have that wired up correctly enough. You have a different plug. Some GPSs come with a bigger plug. I think it's the 1.25mm pitch plug. Then you're going to have to cut the connector off there and do some soldering and stuff to match up the wires. But that's essentially how you put it together. I'm going to head. I'll just actually wire this up really quickly and show you what this looks like. Okay, so I did a quick wire up here for the GPS on this flight controller, and I can see now pretty close to getting a lock here on this GPS. You can't really tell, but they got the red and blue flashing lights here, picking up a bunch of satellites. Turns out my battery was dead. It takes an hour and a half to charge this, so let me have a bad battery. This one should be new. I'm not exactly sure what's up with that, because normally you can just not have this powered up, and I was just going to turn this on and then have this power the GPS until it got a lock. And then, but now this wouldn't turn on. Basically, there's a button up here on top. Long press that to turn it on, and then it'll send power there. But that wasn't working, so I see a little bit of an issue here with this system is that if this battery is dead, this obviously isn't going to work. And it takes an hour and a half to charge up that battery, which means you have to have some sort of power source on this plug here to charge up that battery. See a little red light right there? Not really sure if you can see that. It's a little red light right there. It means I guess it's getting power to the battery. And yeah, I don't have a lock yet. I'm not sure if you guys can see that. We have a blue and a red flashing light. It means it's trying to acquire satellites. I see that it's got a lot of signals here. I'm actually off here to the right. You don't see it off screen. I'm looking at this guy who's connected to a computer, and I'm seeing, it's got pretty close to a lock right now, but I'm going to actually, I can't demonstrate. I can just unplug this, and then this will just lose power, and I can just wait for that to get locked. So, unfortunately, at least I can't demonstrate it right now. Maybe I'll show it to you in a future video. Working on this conversion project over here. So that one will probably be coming out pretty. Oh, there is the beep. And I think that means that it is close to getting a lock. Let's see what that means here. Anyway, these are just the instructions of what I was talking about here. You can turn on the GPS Mate by either holding down the power button for more than 1 second. And if you there's no quad battery connected, it'll shut down after 30 minutes, basically to save the battery that's on the GPS Mate from dying. And you can turn it off by either holding down the power button on the GPS Mate for more than 1 second. I'll turn it off. but it says that we recommend disconnecting the quad battery first, then turning off the GPS Mate. You can also disconnect the main battery and then reconnect the battery for 1 to 5 seconds and then disconnect it again, and then I'll also turn off the GPS Mate. So that's basically how it works. I mean, basically in the field, once you have this all properly wired up, and by the way, do pay attention to, speaking of wiring up, the TX and RX and where they all go, because they have TX going to RX here and then TX and RX going over here. So it is very confusing when you look at this, and you see you can easily mess this up. Trust me, I actually messed it up twice on this end and on this end, because this is a little bit confusing, and I kind of know what I'm doing. So be very careful when you do this, because the TX and RX will get mixed up pretty easily. So make sure you have that all properly wired up. And assuming you have this all properly wired up inside your quad, then when you're in the field, all you have to do is, instead of plugging in your quad battery, you just press the power button on the GPS Mate to power up your GPS. Wait till you get a lock, and then you can go ahead and plug in your quad battery and take off. So that'll save the VTX and the Vista and the air unit from overheating. That's mainly what this is going to be good for. So this is why I'm putting it in this long range 7-inch. Anyway, I think you guys get the gist of it. Let me know if you have any questions, and I'll talk to you guys in the next video.